Today's video will continue our alternate future of the world series, and well, as we know, there's a war between, well, the communists and the rest of the world. It became so initially started by them and some allies here. So let's dive back in, and well, to start this video, we will have an anti-communist offensive in India, in around south of Tibet, maybe Tibet area. And well, quickly they advanced south, with the goal of overwhelming the forces, which they failed to do. But they also managed a small offensive here, with the American forces focused on the liberation of North Africa, which surprisingly goes really fast in the desert. But they're also having to advance fast lands to advance realistically. And well, along the coast, their offensive slow. Not as fast, which you could expect, considering there's probably more resistance over the coast. But in through Egypt, they launch an offensive. And this is to liberate the, what's the country called? Arabian Empire. Yes, imperialism. With them advancing up the Nile and then launching an offensive towards the Suez Canal. And while they quickly capture the Suez Canal, and well, they're kinda in a stalemate there, with Mauritania on the verge of collapse, which by collapse just means faster offensives. As they start taking more lands of this nation, and they launch a strong offensive here. But they also launch some here. Eventually, they push through the areas with people, and they start liberating the West African Union. And well, more of the North African Union is liberated, with a fast offensive through some of the lands. And well, they managed to fully liberate the West African Union, which is good news. But the weakening of the India front is evident, as the front significantly weakens, leading to stronger attacks. As they advance back into the Bengal area, the Bengal region, and they have the forces pushed back far to the south, with India launching an offensive, but it kind of fails. And well, to protect the front of the Central African Union, they decide to land in southern Yemen and move to take the port city of Aden, taking that city, and then they take the city of Sinai, which leads to them having a strong position in this area. And they move up the coast a bit, with the goal is to liberate the Arabian Empire, with them advancing along the African northern coast on two fronts. And they advance steadily and steadily to the north. And well, they pick up the offensive as forces are being brought back to be more effectively used by pulling out of these areas that nobody is. There's no value in some of those lands they decide. But a lot of forces decide to come in to overrun this area. And they eventually lead to a withdrawal from that region, which leads to a focus on liberating the Arabian Union, as they've pushed back the forces significantly. But, seeing it as beneficial, they decide to directly do an attack on Europe with American forces, landing in the communist Spain, with communist Spain quickly crumbling, with forces coming out of North Africa. And while Madrid quickly falls,
with France realizing how incompetent they are, they go in to hold the lands. And while Ireland gets overrun, same with Britain, two collapsed nations that were de-risked. And while Italy, they decide to land in southern Italy and move in the front and these islands as they decide to start taking control.
A major breakthrough occurs in India. A major, yes, it is. And well, they successfully advance down the coast and they successfully consolidate the front with them leading forces in this way. With a withdrawal from these lands, yes. And then a further withdrawal as they have a successful advance against Russia. With more of this union falling out of their hands as it's getting liberated. As they move up towards Turkey and then advance this way into the northern part of this empire. As they move down, as they force the forces out of there in liberation, which disorganized the forces. And offensives are launched against Turkey through here and Russia. And well, India is losing its ability to resist rapidly, as it's being plagued by desertion and demoralization. And while they land over here connecting up with Ukraine's front, with this front connecting over here, cutting off India from the rest of the nations. With America, Australian, and Japanese forces landing in the south. With India wanting to resist but becoming unable to, as they crumble, followed by Iran, which leads to forces moving into the southern part of Russia. With them failing to resist much, they manage to do this. But that's not going to change what's happening. With them deciding to land in Greece, as they move in to liberate the Balkans from communism, basically. As the Balkans collapse, Turkey loses major cities such as Istanbul and Ankara, and they're forced to fall. With a landing taking place in northern Germany. Another landing taking place in northern France. And Russia. With them taking over the Ukrainian puppet and giving it liberation and creating a Ukrainian state. Not a puppet. Well, Spain has officially fallen. Italy falls next. So does France's southern coast. With France refusing to surrender, even though it's completely overrun. And that falls, along with a connection here being created. With them moving into more of Germany's territory. With the nations here surrendering. Germany refuses to. Despite being fully encircled, they still manage to hold on to their capital and Munich, with them falling slowly. With Russia withdrawing from the war, hoping for a fair peace treaty. Will they get it? Who knows? And well, now to see the peace treaty. And well, just to fix this. Yep, all occupied. Let's see how the peace treaty goes. Who's liberated? Who's broke? Let's see. Well, in India, you can see they lost a lot of lands, including a lot of land. They lose Pakistan's area, Afghanistan's, they lose Bengal region, they lose, what's that called? Myanmar, and they lose Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka gains a bit of land, while the north becomes an occupation by China. Russia loses lands to Ukraine, there's Belarus is created. Now Lithuania, Baltica, and Poland are created along with Czechia. And in the Balkans, only changes here in these borders. Also, northern Germany becomes an occupation, along with that German region. With southern France, which is whatever, probably basically something, becomes occupied. The north does, but the south is independent. With Gibraltar being occupied. And let's go to Asia. With the part China annexes that Chinese puppet state. They create Central Asia as they annex lands such as Mongolia, Manchuria, and a lot more. And South China, which was a puppet. And well, kind of splits into two alliances. But neither one actually hates each other, just out of what works best. And well, there's a North American, European one. And well, China and a few allies. China manages to get these nations and the no, not the Philippines, that wouldn't make sense. And Indonesia. The rest decide not to align this way, as they're Western nations. That's the only difference between the two alliances. But it's great enough that it creates a difference. Well, these nations decide to join the other alliance, as they're more close. As China manages to get Myanmar, Bengal, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Central Asia, Iran to join it. Whereas they just get Sri Lanka and Turkey. It doesn't make sense. And well, that's all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out, but not until you subscribe. Bye, guys!